Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 72. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Tasia Custody.
And I'm Gray Williams. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Your levels are just a touch low, Gray, so let's get you a little bit higher so we don't dominate, especially when Tasia gets going and she starts clipping.
It's true. Apologies in advance.
You can find out about Momentous at momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous TV, twitter.com/momentous TV, Instagram.com if you're in the mood, TBD after this episode, Instagram.com/momentous.tv, and on YouTube, search my name and look for the Momentous playlists. So I feel honored. In the last 2 days, I've seen a full one half of the core Momentous crew. Had lunch with Gray yesterday, had lunch with Will today. Now Tasia's sulking, but we're not the ones who moved to Arizona.
It's fine. I see how it is.
The price of flights is a bit much. I would, but
It's true. When are you guys coming for lunch?
we hear the airports are in great shape at the moment, so yeah, we'll be right there. So let's get right into it with a little bit of follow-up. Well, before that, we'll just, as usual, we start with some follow-up, and we're going to get into some AI wackiness, some meta news, metaverse, and Meta the corporation, including Instagram's very bad day. And then a little bit of stuff on gaming, a little bit about the heat, maybe some stuff for what you might be doing this summer if we get to it. And then some picks and projects. And that's it. So stick around for lots of fun and excitement. So to start off, let me push the correct button here, which I forgot to do earlier. And there we go. Last year, we talked about a new laptop project from a company called Framework, and they released their first laptop that was modular, kind of like some of the old-timey PowerBooks. I think even some of the ThinkPads back in the 90s where you could swap out batteries and drives and whatnot. Well, Framework took this to a whole other level, being able to swap out things like I think webcam units and card readers and so on. So we talked about the pros and cons of such a concept. And now Framework has followed up with their next generation laptop, which follows through on its upgradable promises. However, it seems like the battery life is still a bit of the Achilles heel, and that might be in no small part due to the fact that whenever you have modular components that can be swapped out, that takes more space in the interior of a laptop. So that impinges on the total volume available for your battery, which for most people, battery life is king or queen, however you identify on a given day. And that's what people want the most. So will people be willing to sacrifice battery life for a laptop that's more easily upgradable? In terms of the specs, it's got an Intel Core i7, 12th generation, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, Wi-Fi 6E, 55 watt-hour battery, and a whole host of ports, quite a generous selection of ports. Now, Gray, being a Momentous right to repair correspondent, what are your thoughts on the Framework project in general and any progress or lack thereof that's been made with this second generation?
I'm thrilled that it's successful, because looking at a lot of the modular hardware that we've seen over the course of the last 10 years, I think this is actually the first project where they've lasted to a second iteration. The idea of modular cell phones was, I remember one company was kind of putting that out. And so
that Poco phone?
Something like that.
No,
yeah.
Project Aura.
Yeah,
I think that was just anyway. Gotcha. Go ahead.
couldn't make a go of it. And when you take a look at Framework, like, it's a very elegant, expression of this idea. The pieces are actually quite beautiful, and I think one of the captions on Ars Technica says, all the power of a dongle with none of the inconvenience. And that's really kind of what they've done here, is they've made things that don't necessarily have user-friendly interconnect. This actually kind of raises the question about desktop PCs, because they're even worse than this. Framework has taken a very complex piece of machinery and made it so that you can plug these pieces in. I've built a number of PCs over the course of the last 5 years or so, and it's not like this. right? The size of the screws that go into the case, the cards that go in. You can buy cases that video cards don't fit into. Power supplies are all over the place. So this is great. The battery life thing is an interesting one, and this kind of also raises a bit of a question, which is, when you're looking at laptops now, you kind of have sort of three main categories to look at. Apple's laptops, which are notoriously unrepairable, far more than they used to be, but still quite repairable by the end consumer. You have PC laptops, which are a bit of a mixed bag, and then you've got this guy. And so you're looking for something that's going to give you that functionality of being able to swap components out, being able to upgrade them, be able to repair it. There's no competition here. Like, there is none whatsoever. So that battery life thing is sort of I guess we'll have to deal with it. And as consumers, we've shown that we can and we will. The Apple Watch is a perfectly good example of something that should have longer battery life, but doesn't. When we're looking at PCs right now, PC laptops, they should have longer battery life, but most of them don't. MacBooks, just a different category, right? Like they go all day and then some. So for anyone who's running Windows, running Linux, who wants to have this kind of thing, the people in your life who want this know they want it. The people in your life who don't know about it probably don't want it. Maybe, but I'm just kind of looking at it going, like, great work, awesome laptop. I hope more people get on this bandwagon, because I would love to see a future where this is actually more the thing. But yeah, it's awesome. I'm not going to buy one, but it's awesome.
One of those things, glad that it exists for those who want it. But not for everyone. It seems to be a pretty solid it's like high mid-tier laptop, and the challenge it seems to have is the battery life compared to its peers. It's kind of near the bottom of the end of the pack for comparable ones like the Surface Pro 8, XPS 13, Surface Laptop 4, and the like. Now, Tasia, you're being a mobile professional as you are. How much battery life would you be willing to sacrifice to have the modular aspect of a laptop, like what we're seeing from Framework and their 2 generations here, being able to swap out components easily, even if it's like the type of ports you have in there, being able to swap out HDMI port for maybe an SD card reader, or USB-C versus USB-A, and all that kind of flexibility, and not to mention some of the internal parts like upgrading your processor and so on and so forth. Does that appeal to you at all? Is the battery life trade-off worth it? If such a thing existed in the Apple universe, or if, heaven forbid, you ever switched over to Windows. What are your thoughts there?
You're so funny. If I switch over, I think Gray knows what my answer is going to be. That's a big fat 0%. I would trade 0% of my battery for any of that. But I mean, it is, I'm also in the same camp in terms of, like, I think it's really good it exists. And there are people who love that. And there are tinkerers who, are good with that type of thing. And there are those type that just use laptops stationary, plugged in all the time. So that batteries don't, doesn't really matter to them. But battery life's everything to me. Never leave home without another battery or charger or anything. So
yeah, in those periods that they were comparing, the Framework came in just over 6 hours, which is respectable-ish, especially compared to some of the beasts with the giant screens that people have the brightness cranked on. It's not there's a generation of people who only expect like 3 hours of battery life from their laptops, and that's nowadays that is just absurd. When you can get with some of the more efficient Intel laptops, and of course now the new Apple Silicon laptops from Apple, the M1 and the M2s, where you're seeing literally all day battery life, 10, 12 hours, or even more, depending on what you're doing. Of course, Apple has the advantage there with given that they control the platform. But if that's the number one priority for other people, in addition to Tasia, then that is this could be relegated to the realm of the tinkerers and those maybe who have for philosophical reasons, like, insist on being able to do upgrades on their own. And I think we can all agree, diversity is our strength, even in the tech world. So why not have something for everyone? And if there's enough of a market there to sustain that, then Awesome. And if we ever decide to switch to Windows, Tasia, now we've got an extra option. And there's a whole note there on Linux support. I think that's a work in progress because drivers. Another little bit of follow-up. A few weeks ago, we talked about Blake Lemoine, the engineer who was suspended by Google after releasing some chat logs of his conversations with Lambda AI. And after extensive conversations with Lambda, he was convinced that Lambda is now sentient and should be afforded certain rights. Those conclusions, I feel, were a little shaky given on some of the questions or lack of questions that he was or wasn't asking there. And basically everyone else on the senior team of Google AI researchers disagreed with him. But it was an interesting conversation that we had at that point. A little update on that story. After releasing this information, which Google claimed was confidential, and initially suspending him after his June 11th post on Medium, and then which got picked up, I believe, by the Washington Post, he has now been fired. So hopefully he made enough of a name for himself as some sort of AI maverick to land somewhere else or do some consulting or go back to being some sort of quasi-mystic priest and doing his thing, but with the AI angle to it. Anyway, let's just pour one out.
You gotta think that he really truly believed it, because boy, to risk your whole career and reputation on this hill, ooh, it's a tough one, because you knew you were going to get fired. I mean, you released confidential information. It wasn't because of what he said. It's not like he was like, oh, I think this, it's he released the work, part of the work, into the world that is still under development and not for public consumption, and definitely went against their contracts. But boy, he really he laid down, didn't he? He was like, I'm just going to take this one and run with it. But
well, he said, I know a person when I talk to it, and hopefully he knows.
That's what you're building. You're trying to build something that has a more conversational tone to the answers and can pick up.
He failed the Turing test. Oh, no. It passed the Turing test and he failed.
Yes.
So hopefully he knows a created career when he sees one as well.
Poor Blake.
Poor Blake. But yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see where this fellow goes, because now he's got some name recognition, right? In other AI news, we've spoken about some fun platforms like DALL-E, DALL-E 2, Midjourney, DALL-E Mini, which is now known as Crayon. Well, with all of these AI image generating tools available, people are having some fun, especially as they learn the intricacies of the sort of language required to get the best out of these various AI image generating platforms. One of the latest ones we ran across here at Momentous was some absurd AI generated professional food photography using DALL-E 2. Now, DALL-E 2 requires application and approval. I'm still on the waiting list, and then you've got to pay for credits and whatnot. There are some other free platforms, like I mentioned, Midjourney, which gives you, I believe, 100 credits for free, and then you have to pay after that. We've got some friends out there. A friend of the show, Nigel, has been doing all sorts of fun stuff using Midjourney, which is a platform based on it operates through Discord, which is kind of neat. And then DALL-E 2, now known as Crayon, Craiyon. See what they did there? Yes. Is kind of like a baby version of DALL-E. It's not related. They changed the name because it's not actually related to the DALL-E project. But with using some of the similar techniques, you can get interesting results. Not quite as good as DALL-E 2, of course, but with DALL-E 2 and maybe some of these others, by adding the phrase of certain phrases, in this case, professional food photography, it's producing some mind-blowing results, because the photographic effect, like shallow depth of field, also known as bokeh, and just the style and the color grade of some of these photos. So what some of these folks have been doing is things like a Rubik's Cube peanut butter and jam sandwich, professional food photography, a latte art in the shape of a swan, professional food photography, a colorful alcoholic cocktail. And let's see some of the other ones. And some of the stuff that it comes up with is remarkable. Here you go. A taco in the shape of a heart. Professional food photography. So in this case, the AI is actually inventing new tacos, new shapes of tacos to accommodate that. In one case, it kind of cheated. It made one of the ingredients a heart shape. And then we get next level, like meta sort of level, where it's combining these notions with different styles. A Cobb salad in the shape of a robot emoji. Professional food photography. Like, what is happening here? Like, yeah, this look like semi-legit robot emojis, but made with the ingredients of Cobb salad.
That's what I want to do for like my Halloween parties. I just want it to generate like, you know, like a vegetable plate in the shape of a skeleton. Just let it do its thing, and then I don't even have to make one. I can just take the photo. Like I took it, and I can post
and then
it.
Are you gonna copy the design? Yeah, there you go. I mean, because like Gray is mentioned in the past, this sort of thing. I mean, you could go and pass off some of this work as your own, or you could use that as inspiration for projects produced in other media. Here's a Cobb salad in the shape of non-Euclidean geometry. Professional food photography. A hamburger in the shape of 5 dimensions. You think that one through. Professional food photography. So this is basically an exploded hamburger. I'm not sure that's 5 dimensions, or how time is in there and whatever the 5th dimension is. But like, it's remarkable. A SpongeBob SquarePants scrambled egg dish that resembles SpongeBob SquarePants. Get it in there twice. Why not? Professional food photography. And more Cobb salad. They're obsessed with Cobb salad in the shape of a hamburger. Professional food photography. And then, of course, we get to some of the even more delectable things. A hot dog in the shape of a pasta dish. Professional food photography. And it gives you all different approaches to this. Sometimes the hot dog's sticking out of a dish of pasta, and sometimes it's laying across some rotini or other types of pasta with mustard or perhaps Alfredo sauce or even ketchup squirted on top. Like, it just goes on and on. A chocolate cake in the shape of sushi. Professional food photography. So if you want some inspiration, check out Mac Wolf's blog. We'll have the link in the show notes here. So that's the tip of our little AI iceberg here. But there's a couple of other issues that this raises that we just want to talk about really quick. One is that the types of skills that one requires to get the best out of these, and what we're seeing in these results here are heavily curated. It takes a lot of trial and error to get the results that you're looking for using any of these AI image generation platforms. So the whole idea of a curator of art, we've got people who have curated art in galleries for decades, if not centuries. And Gray, I'm sure that with an artist in your family, you're familiar with that world, and some of the I guess there's some politics involved. There's like who there's networking is really important there. This is a different type of curation. It's hands-on, and it's just whatever you're trying to give the AI the best instructions to generate the most relevant or most intriguing or most eye-catching or most outrageous imagery. But then another issue that this all raises is that in order to inform the AIs, they've had to go and scrape the web for tons and tons of imagery, including original art, photography, and so on, which raises ethical questions about, how, what it's generating. There could be a little bit from one artist, a little bit from this photographer, a little bit from this food stylist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some people are saying now, well, it's all a big scam, right? Big tech should be paying for our data, not selling it to us, and even likening it to Soylent Green somehow, because Soylent Green is AI art or something. So,
well, they're taking your own stuff and feeding it back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Human centipede references. Let's throw those in there while we're at it. So,
don't get into Dolly.
One of the issues that, the fact, so not only is it feeding it back to you, but then charging you for the privilege, because this stuff requires computing resources, computing time to generate this stuff. So, great. What are your thoughts on these, whether it's the curation side of it or the ethical side of it? You got to pay the bills here. Is it wrong to charge people for access to these platforms? Because otherwise the people who are creating them are just having to foot the bill themselves. I mean, does that seem right? Like, what is your general take? Again, being a creator yourself, and having an artist in the family whose art might be informing some of these AI platforms.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at that, like the idea of copyright violation actually kind of comes to mind, because if they're ingesting stuff and learning from it and they're not paying for it, that rubs me the wrong way. And given Google, they actually do know what they've ingested with this, and so anyone who's working on a project like this, they would know where the data is coming from. They can quantify it. The system could be able to tell them this. That's kind of what artificial intelligence does. So that's really frustrating. Basically the idea that you can digest this and then spit it back out. Now here's the thing, and I think this is where the split comes. If a human being does that, if you see a piece of art and you get inspired by it and create something sufficiently different, then you have created a new work of art. But if an algorithm or procedure does that, I don't feel the same way about that right now. I guess
that's the nub of the question right there. It's like, well, why not? People learn, people get inspired. Why can't machines learn and get inspired as well, right? This is this unfamiliar territory that they're working through.
Yeah, and that's pretty much why I'm stating that opinion. Is I don't know that I can necessarily elucidate why I feel that is different. I think because if you're using traditional think meat, we don't have the advantages of silicon and these algorithms and the powerful processors that we put behind it. I still think that there has to be some separation between the machines and us until the singularity and we become one, but that's not yet. And so if you're
just waiting for Elon and Neuralink,
but if you're stealing a human's work, using a machine to create something iterative, that to me is copyright violation, and that sucks. So I would look at this and say, anyone who this is learned from and that has had a copyrighted work probably deserves to be remunerated. And it's probably gonna be hard to do, but then don't ingest the work if you can't for it. So it seems like a little bit of a stutter step of, are we going to stall this technology? Yeah, we might, but there's a right way and a wrong way and a legal way to do this, and it probably should be following the correct legal way. But I don't think it is right now, and that's not great.
And this is only one type of medium too. We're not even getting into the notion of AI generated music, for example, or videos, which will encounter the same sort of issues. But again, the similar comparisons will come up. Like a musician can hear other musicians, can get inspired and riff on things. And the courts have decided one way or the other in all sorts of cases whether something actually crosses the boundaries of plagiarism or copyright violation. And sometimes the original songwriters or artists have to get cut in on the deal. So like you mentioned, maybe there is some sort of royalties framework and at the very least some sort of credits. Like there could be like some metadata that says, this image was generated using inspiration from X, Y, and Z. Some of those things are going to be public domain, like in the style of Van Gogh. Well, sorry, I think the copyright is expired on that. But if it's stuff more recent, but then what if it's like 1,000 different components that have been put together there? Then sounds like we might need some blockchain on the case here. Tasia, what do you think? What do you think about this whole issue? Do you look forward to our AI artistic overlords?
No, I would just worry about the same things in terms of where it's pulling the information and whose information it's pulling. And as a creator, how do you protect your work should it get pulled in and a bit used? Like, is there protection over a piece of your work that might get used in an AI generated image? Like it becomes this weird gray area. I think this is one of those typical things where it's moving faster than our laws or court systems will. So it's going to be really interesting to see like the first cases that come up with stuff like this.
I'm sure the lawyers are just rubbing their hands together in glee to see what comes up. So if you are interested in generating your own professional food photography or Van Gogh inspired art or anything that your mind can imagine, and that's part of it. It's like the blank slate. It's just like, okay, what do I do? I was actually playing around with just typing in headlines from spam email that I get and coming up with some horrifying results. But I want to start adding in some like professional food photography to the end of that and see what happens, like sexy Russian brides, professional food photography.
Oh God.
It's like refinance your home in the style of Van Gogh, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there is a great workbook that's come out, or a prompt book that's been come out for DALL-E 2, for those who have the privilege of accessing that system. And a lot of these techniques can actually be applicable to some of the other platforms that we mentioned, such as Midjourney and Crayon. And it's a really great guide. You can view it on the web, or you can download the PDF, and it walks you through things like vibes, photography, illustration, art history, 3D artwork, and all sorts of techniques. And then there's an entire showcase as well that shows you some of the amazing stuff that people are generating. It's like, we've even got like Simpsons, in the style of, what is that? Gray, you're familiar with that kind of art, where you kind of light art in 3D space or something?
Yes, it's basically just light drawing, which is what photography is in Latin anyway. Photography.
There you go. Exactly. So, it gives you guidance on the kind of prompts that you may have better results with. So if you want to play around with this, I'd really encourage anyone out there to check out this DALL-E 2 prompt book. Even if you don't have access to DALL-E 2 itself, one of the other cheap or free or more readily available platforms, a lot of these prompts will work. And again, with your mileage may vary with any of this, so it takes a lot of trial and error, but hopefully a little less error, and with the guidance from this. So it's a little homework for you there. Here we go. Action sports photography, fast shutter speed from ES. Oh yeah, a photo of a 50-year-old white man, silver hair, neat beard, wearing a red gillet, or is that gilet? I'm not familiar with that. Wearing and thick-rimmed glasses. So I actually did that prompt and some of these other prompts with the different styles, like action sports photography, editorial fashion photography, candid street portrait, professional corporate portrait, flash photography, and so on. And I put that into Crayon, formerly known as DALL-E 2, and it came up with some reasonably good results. Like, the more specific you are, the better it gets, because some of these platforms tend to render human faces rather strangely. I've heard that part of that is by design, and but they were loosening that up because they didn't want people doing deep fakes and stuff with them. So anyway, a little something to play with at your leisure. Moving along, I think that's it for our follow-up here. Just one little bit, our resident metaverse correspondent, Gray Williams, will just walk us through a little bit of what's happening with the Meta Quest headset pricing.
Yes. Yeah, this is because we can. Straight up, like, looking at it, they're taking a bath on this hardware, and they have been since it launched. And looking at the demand, they've got a couple of really great built-in excuses. Inflation is a really great reason to do that, but literally this is just,
which is a real thing.
The bleeding. Yeah, we need to stop the bleeding a little bit. And their VR division is not making money currently, much like Facebook did not make money when it first launched, and didn't for about 5 years. So I think this is
Amazon the same. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got an audience, and there's demand for this. We're selling these things as we make them. The interesting thing right now is hearing that there's going to be this $100 price increase, and then there's new hardware coming out. And we haven't heard about it yet, but we know that it is. I think this might actually be designed to cushion the price jump to whatever this new hardware is going to be. I think the Cambria set is what they're calling it. And so it's going to be expensive. Apple's headset is going to be expensive. And so I think this is really Meta going, we'll sell through all of these if it's at this $399 price point. And so we really need to basically save ourselves the bloodbath and still stay competitive while also making our other product look more appealing. Because if there's a smaller gap, then it's going to sell more. So yeah, reason, because we can.
So the conspiracy-minded people out there might say, well, they were just basically buying the market, trying to put their competitors out of business and gaining market share, which seems to have worked for them because they've got the lion's share of the market compared to the other players there. And so now that maybe it's time to finally start losing less, or maybe even making a bit of money, especially when the Cambria headset comes out.
Is that conspiracy-minded? Because I think that's just the truth.
Could be. In other meta news, they're shutting down an app. It's couples messaging app that you didn't even know existed. It sounds vaguely familiar. Apparently it's known as Tuned. Yeah. And so I don't know anyone that's ever used this. It barely made a dent. Meta's trying all sorts of different stuff, to be competitive or to see what sticks, and maybe eventually add into the Big Blue app. Real quick, Tasia, how do you communicate with your significant other? What is your platform of choice? Do you use Facebook Messenger, Instagram, messaging, Snapchat, one of the other more secure platforms out there? Is straight up text? What's your protocol? Your love protocol?
Our preferred method is to sit on opposite sides of the couch and iMessage each other.
That tracks.
But back in the day, we used to use a couples messaging app. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if you remember, TJ, but this is going to throw it back to a little fun fact. When I auditioned, so the first time I ever met you was in an audition, and part of what I talked about was the app that was then called Pair, Pair.
I remember it well.
Yeah,
I never used it.
Which then turned into Couple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had
And
changed the name
now?
and turned it into Couple, and we used to use that all the time because we were long distance.
Aw.
So it was really good because it was like a private messaging platform where we could like just send each other like haptics. So you could do like thumbprint haptics. So it was like you guys were like, you know, you could be like touching even though we were how many thousands of miles away. So it was more meant for that type of thing. But as soon as, you know, I moved here and was in the same house, just kind of iMessage.
Especially when you're indoors for a couple of years for, no apparent reason.
Right.
Gray, what's your romantic messaging platform of choice?
It was called Avocado back in the day, and used it for all of about 3 days. Yeah. Ray and I use iMessage. Occasionally, I'll get drawings on the Apple Watch, or I'll get the heartbeat thing.
Aw, bless.
Yeah, it's adorable. Occasionally, I will accidentally send like the fireworks things I'm tapping on, so I end up with the touch thing. I don't know how I do it, but that feature that I'm like, it sounded so appealing when they brought it up, and I'm like, I've used this like 5 times in however long the Apple Watch has been out. So yeah,
we can send our heartbeats to each other.
Right.
So you never find yourself slipping into Signal for those purposes like you do with some others. You're not sending kind of like government secrets back and forth with your partner.
Oh, I am, but yeah, that's romantic conversations.
My message is encrypted.
Yeah. And then there you go. That sounds out of context. Let's just move on.
And then moving right along. So in other meta news, Instagram, or Meta, is their parent company, is being sued because, as we've talked about for a while and people have known for years, that Instagram the case here is that it is claiming that it causes eating disorder and depression in young girls, according to these lawsuits. And we've talked about the effects on developing brains, or even like mature brains, when you're like doom scrolling and seeing everyone's perfect life, everyone's performances versus, compared to our rehearsals, right? We used to, in some of the classes at Gray that you and I taught, we talked about, you were sitting looking at everyone's perfect brunch and their perfect date and their perfect vacation, and you're sitting in your basement in the dark eating with an undershirt on and eating Doritos. Like it's easy to
Dolly.
Oh, there we go. Professional food photography. So that's one bit of bad news that Meta and Instagram has today. So they'll be working on that. But some of the other news that has really dominated the headlines in the tech world the last day or so is Instagram has been testing a new full screen TikTok-like feed, and it has engendered a number of reactions from across the web, from influencers, big, and influencers, pretty big, like our very own Tasia Custodi. Tasia, why don't you walk us through the current outrage at what Instagram has been trying to get us to do in their new corporate strategy?
It was 4 days ago when my life changed forever.
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night. You could smell the difference in the air. So basically what Instagram's doing now is they have, as a lot of apps do, by the way, I will just preface this saying this is normal. Apps do this. They select users at random a lot of the times, and they will force you into a forced, I can't say the word update because it's not user generated. So you could be running the same version of an app. Right. You could be running the same version of an app as your friend and have a completely different feed, essentially, which is what has happened to me. So what they're testing here now, this is part of their issues this week that's been going on, but this is the newest part of the issue. It happened about a few days ago. So 4 days ago for me. What they're testing is, because they've made this big push to video, And they've been doing that for, geez, probably almost, well, way over a year. Remember when they had the whole IGTV thing? But anyway, so they keep trying to make a push towards video. But what they're doing now is trying to rescale, resize images and videos to make it more of this full screen view a la TikTok. So top, sides to bottom, your whole screen will be one image or video. The issue is, first of all, it sucks. But second, the bigger issue is like that screenshot there doesn't really look like that when you have it on this test. So what's happening is the sizing of everything now is creating a lot of dead space around things. So in particular, what I've noticed is whenever I go back into the app, which is quite rare now because it's rendered it useless for me, the first image or photo, or video, whatever the first post is, it's almost like super shrunken down, and you've got black dead space all around the image, regardless of the size.
Perfect.
And right, it's beautiful because when you're working on a small screen, what you want is dead space. We've got all that real estate to waste, apparently. So instead of on a first swipe, like you would normally swipe to the next post, that doesn't happen anymore. Now on a first swipe, it brings it full screen. So that stupid little image or video you were looking at is now brought full screen. One of the reasons I think they're doing this, and they're not saying they're doing this, is because they're trying to force post interactions. They want people to interact more with users' content, which is really hilarious given the stuff we'll talk about after with Instagram and the algorithm and what they're feeding us. So once you do that second swipe, then you're on to the next post finally. But what's happening now, because you have all of these different sized pieces of content, so they're trying to push a full screen video, but most people are still posting in square format because that's just been so traditional on Instagram. Some people are still posting horizontal videos. So what ends up happening as you're scrolling now are these really, for lack of a better term, piss poor sized images and missized everything as you scroll through your feed. So sometimes you'll have black space around the whole thing. Sometimes it's black space just on the sides. Sometimes the video doesn't even pop all the way up. It's like a 3/4 screen instead of a full screen. It's horrendous. The other forced interaction they're trying to make is, so traditionally on Instagram, you guys know how your name will be at the top left of a post, right? And if you say like tag a location or something, then you have your square post or video or whatever it is. Underneath, you'd have like your name and part of your caption before it would be cut off. Now the name and stuff is totally gone from the top. That's not there. It's just a black bar, like dead space, unless it's a full screen video. And your caption and name are kind of smushied together on the bottom now. And when you click on more to view the caption, it completely grays out and like dulls the post and brings the caption up completely over top of the post. So again, I feel like this is a touch tactic. Like they're trying to make us interact with a post, but to me, it's like, that is not, like, as a creator, that's not a true interaction. So that doesn't tell me anything, as, you know, like, so if you give me those metrics and say, oh, all these people, you know, did this with your post. Did they really though? Or is it because you made it horrible to navigate this app and now you're like swiping extra times on somebody's post?
It's more of a dark pattern than anything at this point, and then maybe inflating their metrics to make you feel good.
Right. And then the other weird issue with mine, and I think it's with the other people too that have this test, I'm really not too sure, is this has only affected my home feed. My home feed has also been automatically switched to dark mode. I don't have that enabled for Instagram. I have that enabled for the YouTube app. It is not enabled for Instagram. And what's wild is if I go to like my profile, totally normal, I'm back to the normal haptics of my phone. I'm back to the normal, how I have my screen adjustments set for the day for the phone. You know, if I'm in my reels or like my, you know, drafts or whatever, totally normal. It's the second I'm back in that home feed, it's a shite show. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's like they gave their developers, like they said to them, hey, don't take UI or UX into account. Let's throw it out the window and just throw this spaghetti on the screen and make the user deal with it. To the point where, even in a video that was released today, they said, and I quote, it's not good. So why would you force users into a test when you're fully admitting He literally says in this video, it's not good. And we're aware it's not good. And I'm also pretty sure the only reason he released this video is because Kylie Jenner and a bunch of Kardashians and a bunch of other celebrities started saying, what the heck did you do? And this is just one issue with it. So like I sent you guys like a video of how screwed up my home feed is. Oh, and the other wild thing, because I was running a test to see like what it was affecting. So see this image on the front, like there's this weird space on the top, the bottom, and the sides. It's just like this black dead space, and it's dark mode. I go into my profile, it's completely normal.
Like, not only is it blasting your retinas when you flip back and forth, but your muscle memory is getting all screwed up too.
It's so jarring. Yeah. Exactly. And so what's happening here is like, this is my account, my personal account on my iPhone 11 Pro. It's running the latest version of Instagram. So see, there's your first swipe. It just brings an image full screen. But if I switch over, if I toggle to another account that I own, which I have one for my dog, don't ask, it's not affected at all.
Not alone, apparently.
Right?
Yeah.
What's more wild though, and it's like, okay, I understand they made the announcement today. It's for select users and select accounts. However, I have the Pixel 6 Pro and I have Instagram installed on the Pixel 6 Pro. I'm running the exact same version. It is normal on the Pixel 6 Pro,
even though it's
my own with the same account.
Interesting.
So it's obviously, my assumption here is because they see what's happening with the sizing of images on an iPhone. You know, a lot of Android phones have maybe longer, wider screens. So if you think it's a nightmare on this device, it's probably even worse on the other one. I don't know. I'd like to know if anybody out there has Androids and have this test as well. I would like to know. But I will tell you, it was a neat party trick when I said to my friends on Saturday, I can't believe, how can you use this app? This update's horrible. And they didn't know what I was talking about.
She said crazy pills.
A whole other world. Yes. And then I had to physically show them. It was just, this is just the iceberg. This is just the one thing they've done for, like, you know, the UI, the UX, the user, you know, design and experience issue. It's just one part of that is this this forced test.
So real quickly, what is the other issue that you alluded to earlier regarding what's actually being shown in your feeds nowadays that some people are upset about? I've noticed this in the last few weeks myself.
Oh, yes. And this, I've had this. So this next issues have been going on for quite some time. They've made a few other changes to your home feed. Mainly, there's a lot of issues with like every other post being advertisements. That's one issue. Another issue is a lot of the, like for me, it's honestly every 1 to 2 posts is an ad. But the other issue is recommended content. So people are getting really upset over, and that's been something that's been months and months and months. I've had that on my account. What they're doing is trying to push, you know, you may be interested in kind of a vibe. Now, what you can do, and what I noticed the other day, and you guys will tell me if you have this on your accounts or not, or if this is just because I got some weird new thing, you are able, at least I am able to mute now recommended posts for up to 30 days. So Instagram did listen in terms of that, because people were like, this is not usable. Like, this is, I don't know these people. Just give us photos from our friends. That's what everyone's saying. Just please give us photos from our friends.
So what Adam Massari is, you know, one of the chiefs at YouTube, he basically says, one thing I hear a lot is people asking to see more friend content in the feed. And then he says, I'd love for there to be more friend content in the feed, but all the growth in photos and videos from friends has been in stories and DMs. So we absolutely have to push recommended content into, which is, again, another TikTok play, because most of TikTok's views are driven not by subscribing to accounts, but by their very powerful and mysterious algorithm, which gets to know you very quickly. And that's what drives their engagement and the crazy number of views for certain videos. So this is just another way that they're trying to be more like TikTok. And some of the influencers out there, the Kardashians and Jenners and the like, are like, stop trying to make Instagram into TikTok. But that's
exactly.
But you know, all these platforms have been borrowing and stealing from each other for forever, with features wise, to maintain their own growth, or at least stop losing users.
But this is just it. You know, with respect to Adam, TikTok was built for that. Instagram was not. And while I understand there is, of course, you need to grow and develop alongside, do not say this was user generated. And oh, because the users are using, you pushed us all into vertical video format. So again, Instagram created that push to any type of video content, whether we're talking what was IGTV, Reels, Stories. Instagram created that push. So for me as a user, that's fine. I think the two can be married nicely together. I don't mind having Reels, as a separate button on Instagram. I like Reels. Sometimes I scroll them I used to, but when I could use this app, scroll them mindlessly all day. I make the occasional Reel. I think there's a place for it on Instagram. That's great as a nice partner and companion to photos and what people know and love. But for him to make that comment, he assumes the user base is stupid and doesn't realize that we know you guys pushed us into video. So don't say it's because you've heard from the users and we just post a lot more video content on our stories. First of all, stories are the only digestible way now that people can see anything from us because you guys made it that way with the feed. So to say that was a user generated thing is a bit of a cop out. And I think in just being honest, like, at least you got to give it to them with the other video. I mean, they were honest. I still think it's horrendous. You would push an update, beta as it may be, and know it's not good. Wouldn't you maybe internally test it first and be like, maybe I shouldn't put this out yet till we figure out the sizing at least. Let's work on this one thing. It's bad. The whole thing, top to tail, I'm angry about it. Don't come for me and say users created this. No, boo. You did.
Tell us how you really feel. So one of my strategies for limiting Instagram time, I follow probably 150 accounts or something like that. Most of them are friends, a few brands, a few other like artistic sort of things. And I never look at stories and I never look at Reels because all I want to do is scroll and see nice, square, beautiful photos.
Yes.
And then of course, lots of ads because like you mentioned, they've increased the ad load like crazy. I've turned off those recommendations.
Yeah.
And sometimes, but you can feed the algorithm by saying, it's not relevant to me. And then it'll ask you why and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to go there. They already know enough about, so that muting feature is great. And then in 30 days, when they start shoving them in your face, mute it again. Now, Gray, I know you don't spend a ton of time on Instagram. You have an account and you post things once in a while, but you don't spend a lot of consumption time. Do you have any thoughts on this whole issue before we move on? Ninja. Sorry, not Ninja. That's Stormy. Ninja's Will's cat.
Yes. Two things. One, Instagram is actually Shopstagram for me. I go there for the ads. They actually have a fairly decent idea of what I want, and so I go and buy ridiculous things on Kickstarter from those ads. That's what I use the app for, and posting pictures of the cat. The one thing I wanted to bring to mind was we have actually seen a major tech company do a massive revamp and then almost immediately roll it back while offering kind of the new and the old in parallel. And that was Reddit. Old Reddit is still available at old.reddit.com, and a lot of people swear by it. Reddit Enhancement Suite was basically built around the fact that people wanted the features of new Reddit, and a lot of those features were actually stolen from RES and brought into new Reddit. And to the point where there's actually an app, which is Alien Blue. Alien Blue? Is that what it calls?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It's the one I use way too often that I don't. Apollo. Alien Blue was the first one. Apollo, right. Done by a Canadian developer, Christian, last name forgotten. But basically, he's built an app that uses Reddit's APIs and gives you Reddit without the new Reddit experience, because the Reddit official app is kind of like Instagram now, a bit of an abomination. So it's interesting seeing that happen. And that happened again without the consultation of its user base. The folks at Reddit, I think, are a little less bullheaded than the folks who are at Meta. So, I don't know, how this is going to go. The last thing we're going to leave you with here is just, we've gone vertical video because we're used to showing video on these things. AR, XR, it's coming, right? Glasses are going to be the thing, and we have two eyes beside each other, not stacked one on top of each other. So a lot of our content's probably going to go back to widescreen. The square was actually a really nice balance between the two.
I love the square.
Yep. Agreed.
It's elegant, from a formatting perspective. That rule of thirds is so beautifully balanced. It's great. I'm not ever going to create video for Instagram. I'm not into it. I don't want to. I like taking a picture, editing that picture, and then uploading that picture, mostly of my cat. But yeah, this is just, again, Facebook seems to, Meta seems to take these steps to just lose audience. And so, they're bungling in absence of a competitor right now. TikTok apparently taking the video stuff, but a lot of us want to do exactly what you both want to do, what I want to do. And if they push us away, someone's going to be there to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and we have to be mindful of like the fact that the certain amount of this is a little old man yells at cloud, that we started using Instagram when it was pretty early and it was used a certain way. Subsequent users, and as the years piled on, maybe have different expectations how Instagram is used. Like I like as mentioned, the classic square photo. I don't know if I've ever posted a non-square photo. That's the way, like, I just like it for that purpose. I use Facebook a certain way. I use YouTube a certain way, but all these platforms are trying to steal from each other. Like Facebook's coming for TikTok, but TikTok's coming for YouTube because they keep increasing the length of their videos. Like they're making a serious play to become the next YouTube. And I'm not I don't really spend time on TikTok because I think there's a number of issues with it, not the least of which is its provenance and the inconsistent policies between certain governments and what they allow and what they don't allow, and that's a whole other thing. Not to mention the algorithm and also what it's doing to people's brains. Not that I have opinions on that. Maybe for another time. Maybe we'll do Momentous After Dark sometime when we get really, really deep into that crap. But everyone's like, all these platforms are coming for each other. They all want to do everything, and a lot of us want to use these platforms for what we use them for originally. Like I like Facebook to see what friends and family are up to. Yeah. And that's mostly it. Like Marketplace is a nice to have, but I don't need it. Messenger is a nice to have, but I don't need it. Like the video features are nice to have, but I don't need them. Like just
why is everyone trying to monopolize all of my time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I let me go elsewhere for other things. Do what you do really well. Meta is the first. They're the first perpetrator of this terrible. Like you got to hand it to Google. At least YouTube has stuck with what it's good at. Right, there are picture posts in there, but they're not
they're doing shorts now to push back on TikTok a little,
which is still video. It's still video. It's what they do.
Yeah,
and streaming to go after Twitch. Like everyone's doing. I mean, like, and then
still
Google
video.
Itself. Yeah,
still video.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it's true though. But like, this is the thing. And again, I'm
waiting for YouTube stills. That's gonna be the next.
Oh, geez, right. Well, technically, on their community page, you can. Post that, but like anyway, I talk from both sides of my mouth. I get it because I do get it from the platform perspective, right? But it's like you don't have to be all things to all people. Okay. So exactly what you're saying, Greg, just stick to what you do best. And I liked some of the changes. I used some of the changes. This is too far. It's sensory overload type far.
Yeah.
With this new test for me, it becomes such an overwhelming experience, which is not why you go to Instagram. You go to Instagram for a comfort experience. You go to Instagram to see what your friends are up to, or an inspirational or aspirational experience. I follow, fitness people and I get inspired, or I see cool travel photos or whatever it might be. So it's like, that's my zen. I don't want to go there and get stressed out. And now I'm like mentally overwhelmed by all this stuff happening on the screen and text overlaying on the videos. And it's like, what's going on? And the missizing.
I go to Instagram to feel bad about myself and develop anorexia nervosa. I don't know about you or any other number of
there's that too, unfortunately.
Conditions and social contagions that are out there that get spread through these platforms. But let's end our little Instagram story on Instagram stories on a happy note and share some of our favorite accounts before we move on straight to our picks and our projects. You have a few favorites here.
I do. I'll go really quick.
Yeah, just talk us through them here.
This is Chessie King. She's really great. I won't credit her with exactly starting the whole movement of, hey, if you have a body, it's a freaking bikini body. Love your body, like, you're perfect the way you are type thing. So she's like the anti, I need to be thin and whatever, and I have to look this way to be in a bikini. Absolutely love her. She keeps it real with all her followers. She will post images showing what, when she's bloated, what her body looks like. She's recently postpartum, so she'll talk a lot about that. She just normalizes the the human body and what it looks like. And, then this is Lucy B. Fink. She's really great too, because she keeps it quite real. She's also someone that's just postpartum randomly. But she's really, really great because she's just a positive light on the Instagram space. There's not a lot of negative, she never does really negative content. She's really cool with like her little fan base that she's built up, and also takes people through the realities of, her body and all that kind of stuff.
You better watch out with these Instagram influencers getting pregnant. You're going to start to get some pretty interesting ads.
I know, I do. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested in it.
Seriously, mixed messages.
I know. And then this is obviously Jennifer Garner. She's just a good follow. Truly joy. It's joy on Instagram. Her little cooking videos are just splendid, and she is just a light. She never posts anything negative. She's just always giving to charity or doing something fun and cool and smiling, or she'll post other people's videos of like people dancing. So like a lot of just art and just a joy.
Good stuff. Gray, a couple of Instagram accounts.
This is Solo, the Prince of Darkness. This is our poodle. Ray is usually the photographer, although there are a few shots in here by me. And actually, there are a few by Penny, his grandma. So he's adorable. He's wonderful. That's a chaise lounge that we got him for. So, and we do video. We tend to do whenever we're traveling somewhere, there might be and that's video of me. So
and if you play your cards right, you could be like Mr. Bentley the dog, a former student of mine who's said British Terrier, has like hundreds of thousands of followers. So all you have to do is put 17 hours a day into a gray, and then doing right, make that happen. Yep, and then another account for us.
This is Sivs. Sivs is a local DJ and music producer, who I actually met at a UBC course that I taught, and just does phenomenal work. Saw at Base Coast most recently, and so I follow this account to find out where Sivs is playing next. So rock and roll.
Very cool.
Actually,
a couple of my
EDM,
yes. Electronic dance music for the mums out there. And Dad. Hi, Dad. A couple of my favorites, C-Bus memes. If you're a local Vancouverite and you want the language of memes applied to local issues, C-Bus memes is always good for a laugh. And if I just want to look at things a little differently, Thunder Girl Crystal, she's Russian, and she just has a really interesting creative approach, usually taking photos that involve a lot of like plants and body parts, whether it's her mouth or ears.
Ooh, sharp tongue.
Also, yeah, exactly. Just really some kind of strange imagery, but some like thought-provoking. And just what I like about it is that it makes it, obviously she sees the world in a slightly different way, to be able to kind of put things together. And it's always a good reminder for us to look at things a little differently as well. Lipstick growing out of a plant, for example.
Cute.
And then
creative.
Sometimes when I just be straight up consumerist, I just look at the Moto Guzzi official Instagram and just look at beautiful motorcycles, because my 2013 Moto Guzzi still makes me happy, and it also makes me happy to look at other newer Moto Guzzis as well. Sometimes they feature some classics too. I know it's silly, but it hasn't made me buy any more from them, but it's just sometimes nice to look at beautiful things. So those are my Instagram picks. So moving on to other picks of the week here is starting with Tasia. A little something from Shania Twain.
Yes. Okay, I haven't watched this yet. It just launched today on Netflix.
You're breaking the rule of picks of the week, suggesting something you haven't yet consumed.
So good.
That don't impress me much.
So I'm watching it on Thursday. I've blocked my night on Thursday for this, but it's just basically going through like her career, kind of what happened to her when she lost her voice and stuff like that, had to find it again. And then also it's going to coincide in September. She's dropping like a compilation album with some new songs as well. That'll be featured through that. You're going to hear some songs on this special. And my sister watched it tonight and said it was incredible.
Awesome. So maybe you'll get two weeks in a row of picks of the week just by double dipping.
Right? I'll tell you. It'll be my follow-up of how awesome it is.
Gray, how about you?
So I've got How to Cook That. As Anne Reardon, Australian food scientist, has done some really great videos in the past about how to make things that you see online. But the most recent set of videos is basically debunking videos that you will see on TikTok and on YouTube and on Facebook. They've actually been promoted by these different video brand pages in their community pages and so on. Like I don't know if you saw the headline of like 34 deaths, and not just cooking things, but in some cases there was one where people are using, I think it's like batteries and wet wood to kind of create this lightning effect, and essentially what they're doing is they're almost electrocuting themselves. So essentially, she's gone through, and the food videos, how to create them, are brilliant. But her debunking what it is that you're seeing in some of these other videos, especially when they're extremely dangerous, I found to be absolutely fascinating. This popped up in my feed yesterday, and I have just been consuming it at a ridiculous pace. Yeah,
people actually stick over paper in their.
Well, it's not even just that. It's like when they will show you how to do something weird and wonderful, and then they cut the video and come up with something that, like, it goes out of frame looking one way, it comes back into frame looking another.
Right.
Like why people are engaging in this sort of misinformation for dollars, and especially when people get hurt, like that's borderline criminal. And so I'm glad to see someone's actually doing the debunking. But it's an endemic issue that the last 6 months has just shot up in frequency.
She needs to do this on TikTok though, where all Gen Z gets their news from now.
Oh, she is. So she's putting it out on both spaces. Yeah.
And my pick of the week is Alone season 9 for those for the. Yes, Tasia, something to say?
You got me hooked on this show years ago, and I can't even remember when, if it was start of pandemic or way pre-pandemic. Brett and I watch. We've already binged the latest season on whatever. I don't even know which platform. Yeah. Netflix, I think. And like, oh baby, it's so good, Tristan. You got us hooked.
So, for those not familiar, Alone is I think it's a Canadian-U.S. co-production. I actually, one of the cameramen went to my high school, and he used to be cameraman on Dave Chalk Connected way back in the mid-2000s as well. He helped us with one of the seasons there. So, this show basically drops 10 people off in the wilderness with a limited number of supplies of their choosing, and they just have to survive as long as possible. Some people have compared it to Naked and Afraid, which I've never seen, which sounds even more extreme. But the difference between Naked and Afraid and this, from my understanding, is Naked and Afraid, they actually have camera crews. This show, people film themselves. They have GoPros and a few other more sophisticated cameras, and they've got to build a shelter, they've got to make fire, they've got to forage for food or hunt food or fish for food, and they have to decide what is the priority, because the more they do, the more calories they lose. The colder they are, the more calories they lose, and they want to outlast everyone else, and whoever lasts the longest wins $500,000. I think the longest I've seen is one guy was pushing 100 days at one point. A few seasons ago, one guy killed a musk ox, which was pretty intense. So it's not for the squeamish. If you don't like seeing anything from squirrels to beavers to fish to musk oxes getting killed for food, the nice thing about the participants is they are mostly trained outdoors people and very respectful of the land and the creatures and what the land can provide to help one survive alone. They do have health checks every couple of weeks, where that's occasionally there will be a camera crew coming in on a boat or helicopter to check up and make sure they're not losing too much weight. Sometimes people get pulled by by fiat, like by the producers, because they're losing too much weight or they've got some other condition. And and otherwise they have a satellite phone and they can tap out whenever they want. And it's interesting. Some people only last a day or two. Like it's so much of it's a mental game as well. People miss their families. So some people just have bad luck and twist their ankle and then boop, sayonara. So it's a fascinating. So we got on, this was a recommendation from my ex-stepfather several years ago. And I think the first season we saw was 3 or 4. They have done a couple of seasons on Vancouver Island. Like usually they do them in the fall. So it's like wet. Vancouver, and that can really get to you trying to survive in the wilderness. They've done a couple seasons in the Arctic, which is a whole other set of challenges. They've gone to Patagonia down in South America. They've had in the southern United States. They've played with the format a couple of times. They've had teams of 2 and teams with multiple people on. They've also done it where you just have to survive a set number of days. But the main Alone Prime is just 10 contestants. Each of them are on their own. They're not within reachable distance of each other, and they just have to survive as long as possible for a chance to win $500,000. And it's just interesting to see how they do it. So, Gray, being a bit of an outdoorsy type yourself, you might find it interesting yourself if you have not partaken as of yet.
We'll check it out.
But be careful because it's a bit of a rabbit hole.
It's true. Tristan got us down it, and it's it's one of the best shows. And we watch Naked and Afraid too, and This is to us weirdly more riveting because they have to be their own camera crew and get the 2 shot on something they're doing when they're starving and tired and cold and wet, and they're also now drag this camera with you because you got to get the shot of you trying to catch a fish. Do you know what I mean? It's so good.
Well, I'm glad you guys like it. That's awesome. So, Gray, your project, you got something going this week here?
Yeah, I'm actually working with with Community, which is where Ray is doing some work right now.
Community, for those listening.
Yep, and Aging with Pride is actually a dance for queer seniors. So I'm DJing that from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock this Friday to kick off part of the Pride festivities, and marching in the parade on Sunday with this group. So. Pretty happy about that, and we're going to be putting together some great music, and they want to have a last dance, so I have the perfect song for that. I'm pretty excited about it. One other thing, this is the Hawkinstown Soccer Club shirt that I was talking about with Vecna 86 on the back.
Oh.
Finally arrived, thrilled, one of a kind, very happy about it.
A quick question: what, according to this organization, what does it take to qualify to be a senior?
55 plus.
Oh, so just like Denny's, like the Denny's seniors menu. Okay.
Yep.
Denny's Pride.
That's cool.
All right, Tasia, how about your project this week? You got another video for us.
Yes, just a Google Drive tutorial, desktop tutorial specifically. I hadn't done one in a minute, so I thought it prudent to do one again. But you have to watch it if you want to know about all the features and stuff like that, because I go into the best features,
I'm actually sending this to Ray's dad because he just picked up a new MacBook Pro. And we were talking, speaking of Denny's, on my birthday, I went for my free breakfast at Denny's with Jerry. Excellent. We were talking about Google Drive, and I told him about the Google Drive app, which he did not know. So this is perfectly timed. Thank you, Tasia.
Yes, you're welcome.
But inquiring minds want to know, are we going to see an Instagram video from you this week?
No, but I'm working on 2 videos for this week because I am a glutton for punishment. So
we look forward to them.
I'm waiting on a gift. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
That's going to be the second video.
Well, all I can say is your presence here with us is truly a gift, and we look forward to seeing more of you in August. And Tasia, Custodi, Gray Williams, and all the rest of you out there in the metaverse, not the Instagram videoverse, just to be clear. We hope your week. Oh, hang on. Okay. Don't have a week yet. Find us at momentous.tv. I almost forgot. Follow us and like us and hit all the buttons on twitter.com/momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv, and on YouTube. Search my name and look for the Momentous playlist there. And now, feel free to have a week that is truly momentous.